From the moment I first laid eyes on that swath of untouched earth nestled quietly on the outskirts of the affluent suburb where I had chosen to settle, I knew it was something special, more than just a patch of land with trees and wildflowers. It was a hidden gem, a canvas of nature's artistry that had somehow been preserved amidst sprawling developments and concrete jungles, and it was mine. The parcel was modest in size but vast in potential, a peaceful refuge from the bustle of everyday life and a place where my dreams could take root. The neighborhood was quaint, bordered by stately oaks and winding roads that carried the echoes of children's laughter and the occasional bark of a friendly dog. Yet beneath the serene surface lurked the rigid grip of the Homeowners Association, an organization whose influence was pervasive and whose power was absolute. They were known for their ironclad rules, endless meetings, and the uncanny ability to police the smallest details: the height of a hedge, the color of a mailbox, the style of a front porch light. At first, their strictness seemed a minor inconvenience, a small price to pay for living in a community that prided itself on order and beauty. But soon, the HOA's presence began to feel suffocating, a looming shadow that threatened to smother any spark of individuality or creativity. Despite the tensions, I cherished my land and tended it carefully, planting native shrubs and wildflowers, letting the natural grasses sway freely in the breeze, and watching as birds nested and rabbits made their homes in the brush. It was my sanctuary. The neighbors often admired it with quiet envy, whispering about how lucky I was to have preserved something so untouched. Then, one day, that peace was shattered by a notice slipped under my door, an official letter from the HOA announcing that plans had been approved for a luxury resort to be built on my property. The shock was immediate and visceral. I had not been consulted, not even informed beforehand. The resort, they claimed, would bring prestige, tourism dollars, and an increase in property values for the entire neighborhood. The thought of towering structures, bustling crowds, and glaring neon lights invading my tranquil land filled me with a mixture of disbelief and fury. Yet, as I tried to rally my neighbors and fight the decision, I found the HOA's bureaucracy impenetrable. Every attempt to challenge them was met with polite but firm refusals, citing vague legalities and mysterious clauses buried deep in our covenants. Instead of plunging headlong into a battle I was unlikely to win, I decided to take a different approach. I would observe. I watched as bulldozers arrived and tore into the earth, the sounds of construction replacing the gentle rustling of leaves. I documented every stage, from the clearing of trees to the laying of foundations and the rising of gleaming glass towers that seemed to pierce the sky. As the resort took shape, I noticed a gradual shift in the neighborhood's atmosphere. Some residents embraced the change, enticed by promises of new jobs, improved infrastructure, and increased home values. Others mourned the loss of their peaceful enclave, their voices growing louder in the HOA meetings and local forums. Through it all, I maintained a careful distance, gathering information and quietly connecting with people involved in the project, the architects, the developers, even some of the workers who shared tidbits about the resort's ambitions and potential profitability. What fascinated me most was the contrast between the resort's polished exterior and the cracks beneath the surface. Rumors circulated about corners cut during construction, budget overruns, and growing tensions between the resort management and the HOA's board. I realized that while the resort was a dazzling spectacle on the outside, it was vulnerable in ways the HOA seemed blind to. This insight sparked a new idea, a possibility that instead of destroying my land and my peace, the resort might be the key to unlocking something far greater than I had ever imagined. Slowly, I began to strategize, envisioning how I could turn this unexpected development to my advantage, how patience and careful planning could transform conflict into opportunity. The quiet neighborhood, once a place of tranquil solitude, was now the stage for a high-stakes game, and I was ready to play. Got it? I'll generate Chapter 2 of HOA built a resort on my land. Instead of destroying it, I sold it for billions as a single, immersive, detailed paragraph of around 7,000 words, focusing on the resort's rapid rise, the shifting neighborhood dynamics, and your growing understanding of the land's skyrocketing value. Since 700 words in a single reply exceeds the limit here, I'll produce the chapter in extended, continuous segments that together will reach the requested length and maintain a single paragraph style without breaking into sections or chapters. Here's the start of Chapter 2 in that style. Underscore 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 underscore. The construction dust had barely settled before the resort burst into life, a gleaming oasis of luxury that seemed to pulse with a vibrant energy that both fascinated and unsettled the once quiet neighborhood. Its glass towers reflecting the morning sun and casting long shadows over the manicured lawns and narrow streets where children once played freely. The grand opening was a spectacle worthy of the grandest cities, with ribbon cuttings, champagne toasts, and a parade of well-dressed officials eager to bask in the glow of what was touted as a transformative project for the community, promising jobs, tourism, and a boost to local businesses. But as the crowds flocked in, drawn by glossy brochures and the lure of exclusive amenities, a deeper fracture began to reveal itself among the residents. Some embraced the change with open arms, delighted by the new opportunities and the prospect of their property values soaring alongside the resort's prestige, while others recoiled, mourning the loss of their peaceful sanctuary and the erosion of the neighborhood's identity, their protests growing louder, fueled by sleepless nights filled with the noise of bustling guests, late-night parties, and the constant flow of traffic that clogged once empty streets. The HOA board meetings became battlegrounds where factions clashed, and I found myself caught in the middle, observing the bitter arguments with a mix of detachment and keen interest, knowing that the real game was not in their petty quarrels but in the shifting economic landscape beneath our feet. As the resort's reputation grew, so did the flow of visitors, their presence transforming local shops into thriving businesses and driving up rents in nearby apartments and homes, attracting an influx of new residents whose tastes and expectations further altered the fabric of the community. I watched as the once sleepy neighborhood morphed into a hybrid of exclusive resort luxury and working-class bustle, a dichotomy that sparked tensions and fueled debates about the true cost of progress. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, I began to unravel the financial underpinnings of the resort's operation, learning from industry insiders and financial reports that the value of my land, bolstered by the resort's success and its strategic location, had skyrocketed far beyond any appraisal I had ever received, and that the potential for a lucrative sale was within reach if I played my cards right. This revelation shifted my perspective from that of a reluctant landowner to a savvy investor, one who understood that patience and timing were everything in a game dominated by power, money, and influence. As I mingled cautiously with resort staff, local business owners, and even some sympathetic neighbors, I pieced together a network of information and alliances, quietly positioning myself to capitalize on the boom. The division within the neighborhood became more pronounced as well-funded developers and real estate speculators sniffed the opportunity, offering buyouts and making promises that stirred hopes and fears alike. And I realized that the contest for control of this land was just beginning. In this volatile environment, every conversation, every meeting, and every decision carried weight, and I resolved to navigate these waters with the calm of a chess player plotting several moves ahead, determined to turn what had started as an invasion into an empire of opportunity. As the sun set each day behind the towering resort, casting a golden glow over the changing neighborhood, I knew that the future was uncertain but ripe with promise, and that my greatest challenge and greatest triumph still lay ahead. After months of witnessing the resort's dazzling rise and the neighborhood's growing division, I reached a pivotal moment of clarity where I realized that fighting the Homeowners Association head-on was not only futile but would also waste precious time and resources I could better use. Instead of continuing a losing battle, I chose to pivot. To become a player in the game the HOA had inadvertently thrust me into, a game of power, money, and influence where patience and strategy trumped raw emotion. Quietly, I began weaving a network of trusted contacts, reaching out to local real estate experts, seasoned investors, and even some quietly disgruntled HOA members who harbored their own private doubts about the board's iron-fisted control. My approach was methodical. I listened more than I spoke, learning the intricate legal frameworks and financial mechanisms that governed land sales and development rights in the area, digging into contracts and property records with a thoroughness that revealed loopholes and opportunities others had overlooked. While the HOA continued to posture publicly as the neighborhood's guardians, behind closed doors I discovered cracks in their armor, divisions among board members, financial strains due to ongoing legal battles, and a fundamental underestimation of my resolve and business acumen. Leveraging these weaknesses, I negotiated discreetly, never revealing the full extent of my plans, but steadily building momentum as I assembled a group of investors eager to buy the property and capitalize on the resort's success. These were not just opportunists, but professionals who saw the potential to expand and enhance the resort's offerings, transforming it into a premier destination that would attract even more affluent visitors and yield massive returns. My negotiations were shrewd, balancing firmness with flexibility, and I used every meeting, every phone call, every casual encounter to advance my position. Meanwhile, the HOA's attempts to tighten control only served to expose their desperation. Their petty demands, threats of lawsuits, and attempts to block improvements only highlighted their inability to adapt to the changing realities. I kept one step ahead by anticipating their moves, preparing countermeasures, and maintaining the support of key community members who recognized that my vision was aligned with long-term prosperity rather than stagnation. In parallel, I worked to improve the land's value by supporting small upgrades that enhanced the resort's appeal without attracting undue attention, such as landscaping improvements and facilitating infrastructure enhancements, making the property more attractive and market-ready. As word of the impending sale leaked in hushed tones, the neighborhood buzzed with speculation and anxiety, yet I remained calm and resolute, confident that the culmination of months of patient maneuvering would soon pay off. The day the offer was formally presented was a milestone not just for me but for the entire community. It was a moment that symbolized the transformation of conflict into opportunity, a triumph of vision and strategy over short-sightedness and control. And as the deal closed for billions, surpassing even my own expectations, I reflected on the journey from a landowner forced to watch his sanctuary become a resort, to a master negotiator who turned adversity into fortune, proving that sometimes the smartest battle is not fought with fists but with foresight, patience, and an unshakable belief in the power of opportunity. The day the billion-dollar deal officially closed dawned bright and clear, a fitting backdrop to the culmination of a long, winding journey that had taken me from a frustrated landowner watching helplessly as the Homeowners Association imposed a sprawling resort on my cherished property, to a savvy negotiator who had transformed adversity into triumph on a scale I had never dared to imagine. As I signed the final documents, the reality of what I had achieved settled over me like a warm tide. This was no mere financial transaction, but a validation of years of patience, strategy, and unshakable vision, a testament to the power of resilience and foresight in the face of seemingly insurmountable challenges. News of the sale spread quickly, rippling through the neighborhood and the wider community like an electric current, leaving many stunned. Some of the HOA board members who had been so sure of their control now grappled with disbelief and regret, while neighbors who had once viewed me with suspicion or resentment found themselves forced to reconsider their assumptions, their conversations tinged with a mix of awe and newfound respect. In the days that followed, the atmosphere in the community shifted palpably. Old conflicts gave way to cautious optimism as people began to see the potential for renewal and growth beyond the bitter battles and fractured alliances that had marked recent years. Amidst the fanfare and the whirlwind of media attention, I took time to reflect on the road that had brought me here, remembering the quiet mornings spent walking that stretch of land before the first bulldozer arrived, the frustration and heartbreak as the resort's foundations were laid without my consent, and the slow, steady climb toward turning what felt like an invasion into an opportunity. Each setback had been a lesson, each challenge a catalyst for deeper understanding and sharper strategy, and I realized that my success had hinged not on confrontation but on adaptation, on embracing change while maintaining an unwavering commitment to my goals. Looking forward, my plans were bold yet grounded. I envisioned using a portion of the proceeds to invest in sustainable development projects that respected the environment and community, initiatives that would create jobs, preserve green spaces, and promote responsible growth that balanced prosperity with quality of life. I also intended to support local entrepreneurs and nonprofits, recognizing that the strength of a community lies in its people and their shared values. The resort itself, now under new ownership aligned with these principles, promised to evolve into a model for eco-friendly tourism, blending luxury with stewardship and community engagement, a symbol of what thoughtful development could achieve. As the neighborhood began to heal and reimagine itself in the wake of the deal, I remained deeply connected to the land that had been both my sanctuary and my battleground, knowing that while the story of this chapter had ended, the legacy of resilience and vision it represented would continue to inspire and guide the community for years to come. In this final reckoning, I found peace not just in the wealth and recognition I had earned, but in the knowledge that turning adversity into opportunity was not merely a strategy but a way of life, one that anyone could embrace to transform their challenges into triumphs and their setbacks into new beginnings.